Welcome to Type C Tech Reviews. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Gigabyte M27Q X. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same monitor, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but let's talk about the M27Q X. Firstly, this is a 27-inch panel with a resolution of 2560 by 1440p. This brings the PPI, or pixels per inch, which is essentially how crisp and clear that image is actually going to appear to your eye. That brings it to about 109. This is a good balance between being able to hit those higher frame rates with ease on most systems and having nice clarity and crispness to the display. This is pretty much like the Goldilocks perfect resolution, unless you have something more powerful like a 4090, 4080 that can do 4K high refresh rates. Now for panel type, this is an IPS panel, which means you're gonna get really good ghosting, so quick for fast-paced FPS games, as well as good viewing angles and colors, which is something we like. Now before we get more into the panel itself, let's talk about ports. This is actually great here, having one DisplayPort 1.4, two HDMI 2.0s, a USB Type-C with 18 watts of charging, and then a USB Type-B upstream port with then two USB 3.0 downstream ports. You also then get a 3.5mm audio jack, and lastly a Kensington lock if you do want to lock your monitor up, but I think most of you will not use that. Okay, now refresh rate and variable refresh rate. This hits 240 Hz natively, which is fantastic. That's probably the reason you're getting this monitor or interested in this monitor. Now for variable refresh rate, this has FreeSync and also works well with G-Sync. So if you have an NVIDIA card, it works very, very well with those. Overall, there's really no issues with anything like screen tearing, and this has LFC or low frame rate compensation, so this really is a great overall experience. It's something that you just never really worry about, but it's working there in the background doing its thing. So yeah, no problems there. Now, brightness here, let's talk about it. Gigabyte has been doing really, really well with this lately. So in SDR, after testing, this reached about 380 nits of brightness. Now, that's actually a really, really good SDR brightness. It's nice and vibrant. It's more than they advertise, which is great. But the really impressive thing here is the HDR brightness. And again, these brightness numbers are full screen. We're not talking about highlights directly, so chances are it's gonna be even brighter than those numbers actually might make you think. HDR brightness, full screen, 100% window, hitting 511 nits. That is fantastic. That's not highlights. Highlights are getting even brighter than that. Full screen brightness in HDR is absolutely fantastic. If you want a really vibrant, beautiful, bright gaming experience, you just switch this thing into HDR. SDR is great as well. There's no problems playing with that. It's still got great vibrancy, but the HDR really bumps it up a notch. And it's something that's really impressive in a 240 Hz panel. We do see quite a lot of 240 Hz panels that have that higher brightness, but with the 1440p, it's got a slightly wider color gamut. We'll go over that, but it's just a really enjoyable gaming experience. Not just for speed and competition, which this is great for, but also beauty, which you guys know that's something that I love. All right, let's talk about colors here. Out of the box accuracy definitely had overboosted greens and underdone reds and blues. The color temperature here was pretty bang on, so out of the box, this actually doesn't look bad at all. If we're just talking about like a visual experience, color temperature is a lot of times the thing that you're really, really going to notice if it's off. And this looked really, really natural, not too bad at all before any calibration or anything like that. The colors were a little bit off, but nothing crazy. So if you're not planning on tuning the colors or getting a calibration done, I wouldn't say this is going to be like an issue. It still looks great. It doesn't look crazy. However, with just a few corrections just in the OSD itself, this made a huge difference to balance out those blues and reds and pull down those greens a little bit. Really, it wasn't that many corrections. I think it was just a few clicks. I will have on screen a picture that I took with my iPhone of the actual changes that I made. Obviously, this isn't gonna work for everyone because the colors on each panel are probably going to be slightly different, but if you wanna try that and see how it looks, you're more than welcome to go ahead and do that. Now for coverage, this hits 92% of the DCI-P3 color space, so nothing wild here, but definitely nice to have a little bit of a wider color coverage on a panel like this. So there's a reason to go in HDR. You're at that higher brightness, you're getting better colors. I think it's a nice touch. This is a really good monitor. And lastly, this can output 8 bits of color only at full 240 Hertz, and you can do 10 bits of color using FRC or frame rate control for 10 bits of color at 200 Hertz or below. So you have to be at 200 Hertz or below. Unfortunately, I can't get it to output 10 bits of color at the full 240 Hertz. Not a big deal at all, but just a little note. Now let's talk contrast ratio and backlight bleed. This is standard here. It's an IPS panel. It's only getting 1000 to 1 in terms of your contrast ratio. That is the trade-off you make for long-term reliability, good colors, and low ghosting without going for an OLED, but you're never gonna have the long-term reliability with an OLED. So there are trade-offs we make here. That's what we do. There is no perfect panel technology at the moment, except for mini LED lit IPS panels. That is basically a perfect panel technology. There's bloom and issues like that, but yeah, so the contrast ratio is not great here. The blacks look a little bit blue. So if you don't like that, you're gonna have to either go with a VA panel, a mini LED lit IPS panel, which are very, very rare still, or an OLED. But really there still aren't any great OLED options in the monitor industry, especially for 240 Hertz. But if that is a deal breaker for you, it's not for me. I personally really like IPS panels, but if that is a problem for you, you would either go with like the QD OLED from Alienware, or I would say one of my favorites is the Samsung Odyssey Neo G8. It's a lot more expensive, but that'll give you those deeper blacks with 240 Hertz. Now for backlight bleed, my unit had absolutely none, so that is great. Past quality control there. Now response time and ghosting. This is very important for a 240 Hertz panel, and it is absolutely extraordinary, like as I expected. This has essentially no blur or tail at all. The fastest overdrive setting causes pixel overshoot, so I'd say the picture quality, that's the name of it, overdrive setting is the best one to keep it in. This is extremely good for fast-paced games. Input lag is nice and low. You're not getting any of those visible trails, ghosting trails, unless you are very, very prone to seeing it. But still, you're only ever going to see any very, very micro amount of ghosting at all, only in super fast whips with deeper, darker colors. So yeah, ghosting here, I just think for 99.9% of people, ghosting's not gonna be an issue. It's that good. Now, standard build quality, it's classic Gigabyte here. It's metal wrapped in a plastic like outer layer. It feels solid. It's not extremely premium, but definitely not budget either. The panel itself has great build quality. It feels very solidly put together, and it's got some nice accents here and there. The stand doesn't have a massive amount of adjustment, but pretty much what you need. It has height and tilt, and that's it. So it doesn't have swivel, doesn't have rotation, but I am glad that it does have height. For the menu system, this is similar to the build quality. It's just classic Gigabyte. It's what we've seen for a long time now. It is fairly easy to get to everything. Most things are easy to get to and easy to read and easy to find in the menu system, but it just looks super dated. It doesn't look up to date. It's nowhere close to LG system, and I would say it's not quite as good as Dell's system or Alienware's system, which does still look a little bit nicer. This one definitely, it just does look dated and just not techy at all. As for Vesa compatibility, this is 100mm by 100mm, so yeah, pretty standard. Now, let's talk internal speakers because this does have them. And then we're gonna get to the most important section of the video, price and value. The internal speakers here get reasonably loud, actually louder than I expected. They're not great, they're a little bit muffled, but again, impressive that they get that loud. It's really nice to have these in a pinch if you just don't have your headset connected, maybe your headset dies, and you don't have any speakers. This is nice to just, well, on the fly, just have it in case you need to listen to something really quick. But overall, no one's really going to use these as their daily speakers unless you hate audio quality. All right guys, but now the most important section of the video, price and value. Well, this monitor comes in at $449.99 price tag. Check the links below for current pricing because it can change. Now, this is where you're getting an amazing value for a 240 Hz monitor as you're spending enough to get 1440p, and you're getting a lot of extra goodness like a wider color gamut, great ghosting, a really good brightness, and an IPS-based panel. You're not spending ridiculous money for features you may not need or use or want. This is really the Goldilocks of 240 Hz monitors. It gives you the 85 to 90% of the experience of the ones double to triple this. You still get the performance here. If you have the extra money and you want the best of the best, you can spend that. But if you're buying a monitor and you're very focused on value, this is the best 240 Hz monitor to get in terms of dollar per dollar value, price to performance. Again, if you want to check it out, there are Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. If you use those, it also helps support the channel and pays for these videos to keep being made. But this is Type C Tech Reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next video.